welcome everybody. My name is Debbie Rosen. We're super glad that you're all here. I'm very excited to have a special guest, but I'm going to actually go ahead and share my screen. Sorry, share the information. Sorry about that. Slides. And go ahead and get started.
I'm impressed.
So just a couple minutes on the Study Pro in case you do not know who we are. We are an Executive Function and Study Skills Center. So what that means is that a lot of the things that you see here on the right, which are super challenging, of course, right now where all of our executive function tanks are low, are things that we help students work on. And what we like to say a lot are that executive functions are skills, and those skills are developmental. And we'll talk about that with Dr. Cam today as well. And they develop variably. And so what that means is that we can be great at maybe planning or organizing, but really have trouble getting started on our work, or maybe chunking or pacing our work over time. And so what we like to do is to help students to build those skills and really look at them as kind of meeting them where they are. And we will be recording the event because I noticed that was a question. So we are recording it, so we will be sending that out. Someone did mention that I'm frozen. Am I frozen for anyone else? No? Okay, great.
Not for me.
Belinda, want to go ahead and just refresh your screen or sign out and sign in again. And we do share our skills in terms of executive function and study skills in multiple ways. We work with students one-on-one. We have a remote homework center because it's really important for students to get support, what we call at the point of performance. A lot of times kids really just need that structure to get started and that accountability. And so that's what we do in our remote homework center. We also offer during the school year and the summer our study skills courses to provide a system for students to learn how to manage their time, organize, take notes, study for tests, etc. And because writing is so process oriented, we also have writing coaching and then writing courses in the summer. So we appreciate you learning a little bit more about what we do. And today we're having a unique conversation with Dr. Cam Caswell. And I wanted to talk a little bit about her. I have been so excited to have the opportunity to meet with her in the process of preparing for today. She is, as you see, an adolescent psychologist and a family success coach. She's also an author and hosts a Parenting Teens with Dr. Cam podcast. And more importantly to all of us today, she is a teen translator. And what that means is I know every one of you, pencils ready, are going to be writing down not only the method with which she talks about in terms of how we can approach our kids, but a lot of the tips that I need reminding of. I know having a 13-year-old and a 21-year-old, I think that 21-year-old still clearly falls for me in that teen category based on everything that you've said. So I also want to share that if any one of you are educators or no educators, Dr. Cam and some colleagues are actually hosting an Engaging Teen Students Summit in April. That is from April 13th through 15th. And so Dr. Cam, maybe you can, at the right time, share a little bit more about that. It is for high school teachers, and we are really excited to be part of that, and just the fact that she's doing that, we know we need to help translate for not just parents, but also teachers how to best engage students. And we're going to just jump right in and talk teens. I'll go ahead and read this because I know everyone else will be, but my belief is that teens act out when they feel misunderstood, and teens feel misunderstood because they are misunderstood. So help us understand what's going on with our teens.
Well, I want to first say thank you for having me on, and I've really enjoyed getting to know you and talking about this. So I'm happy to be here. And one of the first things I tell parents is that their teens are actually not broken. A lot of parents come to me saying, "Can you fix my teen?" And they are wired in a specific way to do what they need to do when they need to do it. And what happens is, as parents, we misinterpret their behavior. A lot of times it comes across as defiance. It comes across as being lazy. There's a lot of different things that it kind of triggers us. It makes us feel uncomfortable. What I like to do is help parents understand the why behind the behavior and what teens are actually trying to communicate to us, just not in a great way a lot of times. And once we understand that, everything changes. And I first learned this when I was teaching adolescent psychology while I was getting my PhD, and several of my students were also parents. And they started coming up to me after class and going, "Oh my gosh, what we're learning in class is completely changing my relationship with my teen." Wasn't the teen changing, it was the parent understanding the teen changed everything. And so much conflict just dissipated. And now I'm a mom of a teen myself. So I live this every day and it works. So that's why I am just so adamant about getting this information to parents, because small little changes can make drastic changes with our teens.
Yeah, and it is so true. One of the things that I've learned, I had a long, tough road with my now 21-year-old, and one of the things I know that I learned a lot, and we'll be talking about a bit later, is that really it is up to us as parents to certainly make the first move and probably most of the moves, because it really is hard to ask our kids to do things that we ourselves can't do, like control our emotions, right? Or
Right.
make our really big emotions, have a way to really handle them appropriately. And so there are a few tips I know that we want to talk a little bit about and make sure to emphasize talking about big emotions, right?
Yeah, and what's amazing now is we have information now that we didn't have even 10 years ago, thanks to neuroscience. And we've been not me, I've been reading other people's studies of the brain development of teens. And what we've learned is that the human brain goes through two enormous growth spurts in our life. The first one's when we're infants, when we're learning to talk, we're learning to walk, we're learning to just understand the world. The second one is during adolescence. So our teens' brains are going through this huge growth spurt. And when we're young, it's going through a growth spurt in terms of size. Now it's going in a growth spurt in terms of density, which means all these connections are created. And it's called blossoming. And we're creating more and more connections. We're primed to learn. One of the things I think that I like to share to showcase this is, what music do we love to listen to? What makes us feel good? We all revert back to the music we listened to in high school. Why is that? Because that's when the connections with music were forming at its most. Those are the strongest connections in our head. So this is a good example of what those connections are and how they really impact the rest of our life. The other really thing to remember or to know is that our brain is growing unevenly. And so it's starting from the back and growing to the front, which means the amygdala, which is in the back of our brain, is growing. That is about fully developed around the age of 11. And that's where our fight or flight response comes from. That's where all of our big emotions come from. That's where our reactions come from. That is fully developed right now. The part of the brain in the front, the prefrontal cortex, which is the executive functioning, the part that says, whoa, let's slow down. Is this a good choice? Is this the right way to do this? Let's regulate our emotions. That doesn't fully develop until well into our 20s, like 25 or more. So I would love the way one person I heard describe it was, our Porsche is fully loaded. It's fueled up on gas, and we've got like bicycle brakes to stop it, so we're fully go, which means our kids are doing the best they can. This is why their emotions are going all over the place. This is why they overreact in our opinion, to some of the smallest things. This is why they have trouble, little things can just kind of blow them up, and they have trouble coming back down because they don't have the tools yet. And that's why we want to remember that it's up to us to be the ones that are calm, and it's up to us to teach them the tools, because that's why their brain is growing right now, because they're learning those tools right now. They don't have them yet.
I love that. I think that Dion, you might want to try logging back out and in, because I think hopefully um, you can hear everybody. Um, Thank you, Julie. So it's so funny, Dr. Kim, that you say that, because when again my son was growing up, he's still doing that, but when he was a little younger, he has he does have ADHD, and one of the phrases that I heard a lot was very similar to that: a Ferrari engine and bicycle brakes. And it
Mm-hmm.
was so true. And we used to talk about that a lot, and it's absolutely the case. And so when we get bicycle, that Ferrari engine and bicycle brake combination, we as parents have a lot of challenges, right? And so we sometimes can get in an emotional battle. And one of the things that I call it a lot is climbing the ladder. They say something that is offensive to us because they shouldn't be speaking to us that way, or we don't like their tone, and then we say something back, and then they say something back, and it's just climbing the ladder. So, as you say here, and these are your quotes, right? We're really the only ones that have the capacity to calm down. So how do we avoid climbing that ladder? It's so hard because in our brains we're like, they shouldn't be talking to us like this.
Right. And when we think about it, how hard is it for us? And we've got a fully intact prefrontal cortex and we have trouble. So think about our kids who don't have that yet. And so when we're in this conflict and we're adding and equaling their emotion, all we're doing is adding fuel to the fire. There's no way they're going to be the ones that say, okay, let's calm down and talk about this rationally. It's not going to happen. So we need to be the ones. Now we're get into fight and flight. We're reacting. So one of the things and the first things I teach the parents I work with is we've got to learn how to be calm, because it is up to us to set the mood. A lot of parents like to blame their teens on all of the conflict in the house, but quite frankly, I hate to tell you this, it's up to us to set the tone in the house. And that's by us remaining calm. And when we can do that, we can then think more rationally, and our teens then model that behavior. They start learning, hey, the way to deal with difficult situations is to become calm. And so the best thing when things, I call the spiral, I love the ladder, when things start to spiral out of control, step away. You can just say, I am starting to get emotional here. I'm going to step away until I can think clearly. And when we're both there, let's readdress this and talk from a calm place. Because here's the interesting thing too. When you talk to your teenager when they're calm and you ask them what the best decision is, they're going to know the best decision because they no longer have this emotional wheel going on, right? So they know when they're calm too. It's just when their emotions take over, I call it hijacking. Their whole brain gets hijacked by emotions and they can't think clearly. Either can we. So we need to stay calm and we need to set the tone of calm in our house.
Mm-hmm. Well, then let's just talk a little bit about that. We just said, so how do we typically react? We did talk a little bit about that already, and we know kind of why it doesn't work. But what are some of the tips? I'll just lead with one thing that I've learned, which is that I have to kind of ignore my brain reaction. I know we're going to get into your prime method, but I don't know if you have any other tips like this. I have to ignore what my brain is telling me about. That's so rude, right? Because sometimes when I get that burst of reaction, there is always that need under the behind the behavior, and I have to just almost ignore that and not say anything. And one of the biggest tricks, especially if my daughter, especially who's 13, gets really angry at something in the car, and she will, of course, speak very loudly, if I just say nothing, and then the loudness is reverberating in the car, and she's almost hearing herself over and over again, and then I almost immediately get a sorry. But of course, if I was to climb that ladder or go through that spiral, it'd be a little bit harder. So do you have any other tips when it comes to that, or should we move into the prime piece?
No, I've got one tip too, and it kind of goes into the prime, but a lot of it is thinking about this ahead of time. So if you know a situation that you're getting into a lot with your teen that's triggering you, and a lot of the triggers come back from when we were teenagers, and it's triggering how we feel when people treat us like that. The other thing is parents are like, wait a second, this is my child. They cannot treat me this way. This is not acceptable. And we get this like I need to be bigger than them. I need to show them who's boss. And I get that. I mean, again, I'm a parent of a teen too. We want to establish we are the parent. The problem is a lot of times the way we do it is by getting louder, by getting bigger, trying to be bigger, by lecturing, doing all these things. We feel like it is exerting our authority. What it's actually doing is undermining our authority because we're showcasing to our kids we don't have control over ourselves, which in their mind is rationalizing their side of it, saying, look, mom and dad are crazy. And we know this is going on in their head. So I want you guys to just think, what are the things that set me off? And what am I going to do next time? We need to pre-plan this because when we're in the moment and you go, they're pissing me off, our mind is now going into fight or flight, and we're not going to rationalize it. We're going to go right back into what we usually do, which is yelling, taking the phone away, doing the things that we always do because that's now built-in habit. That's instinctual. So we got to retrain ourselves on how we're going to react, and that needs to be when we're calm. So we're going to talk about some things, but I just want to give everyone a heads up. It's not okay, now I know what to do. It's okay, we need to practice this. We need to figure this out. We need to imagine ourselves in this situation and now rethink, how am I going to react in that moment? So I'm not saying in any shape or form, this is easy.
It's never easy. Things that are good are never really easy, right? But we have growth mindsets. Our community has growth mindset, right? So we're maybe just not there yet. So let's talk about this approach called PRIME. I'm going to actually go to the next slide, and I'll let you talk a little bit about it. I do want to say that we're going to not only talk about the approach and why the approach is important, but we're also going to talk about the fact that, or talk about some examples, and then we're going to ask for you all to be thinking about some examples. And we've left time in the program this morning for you to share in chat some of the things that are going on in your home, and then we'll try to apply the PRIME kind of method to those. So as we are going through PRIME and going through the next slide, which has a couple of examples, if you have some examples that you want to share, we'll be putting you can be putting those in the chat.
Yeah. So the PRIME is a method that I developed because I really thought about what is it that I as a parent do and what do I typically end up walking my clients through. And I just started sifting it through going, okay, these are the steps we usually go through. And then I created this so that I can teach it to anyone. And the whole point of this is to realize, and we all know, every parent's different, every teen's different, every dyad's different. And I don't know what is important to you. You may have something that is far more important to you, and I can't tell you what is important to you, right? But what I can do is help you figure out how to walk through this to find a better approach that is going to work with your teen's wiring rather than against your teen's wiring, which is what we often do. So I came up with this PRIME parenting method, and it's really like priming the pump. And this is a good way to remember it. It's getting everything set for success, right? We're getting it set for success. So the first step in this is the problem. And, a lot of parents will come to me and go, oh, my child is so disrespectful, or they're lazy, or they're a liar, or these very broad, big descriptions of what's going on. And the problem is when it's that broad, how do you change that? How do you fix that? So I help parents drill down to what is the specific problem. How are they showing disrespect? When are they showing disrespect? Who are they showing disrespect to? What's happening beforehand that might be triggering it? What is the reason underlying it? So, which we'll get to. So the problem is, if I'm going to say they're disrespectful, let's get really, really crystal clear on what we mean. Because now that's something we can address. That's something we can figure out. And then we go to reason. So a lot of times what we do is we react to and try to stop the behavior. And the behavior is just a manifestation of what's going on. That's how they're reacting to something. It's not the problem per se, it is why they're acting that way. So we want to get underlying to what is the root of that behavior. Why do they feel the need to act disrespectful? Or why are they rolling their eyes? And so this can get into brain development. Where are they developmentally? This can get into the relationship with us. You know, sometimes we need to look at, are we feeling connected with them? Are they feeling like they need to exert their authority? You know, so are they exhausted? Are they anxious? Are they overwhelmed? And this is the best way they can do it. So it's looking at what is the reason, because then we can address that. Otherwise, the behavior is going to continue coming back, or it's going to manifest in a different way, often even worse than the way we were stopping it, right? And we've seen this. Then we go to intention. What is our long-term goal? Because when we react in the moment, our short-term goal is to just stop the behavior. And we'll do that however we can. We'll yell at them. We'll tell them to go to the room. We'll take their phone away. We'll threaten them. We'll do whatever we can to stop that behavior now. But what is that teaching them in the long run? Not a whole lot, right? It's not changing their heart. It's not changing their skills. It's just stopping it right then. So what is our intention in the long run? If we feel they are disrespectful, is our intention that we want them to teach them how to communicate in a more respectful way? Is it that we want to understand and be able to listen to their side so that they feel understood and we can find a way that actually they can get on board with and we can achieve the same thing long term, right? So what is our intention in this moment? And this is when we really get into like our values, our purpose, things like that. Mindset is really key here too. And you know, you were just talking about, Debbie, you were just talking about the growth mindset. And this is where this kind of jumps in, is when we sit there and go, my teen is lazy. My teen is disrespectful. Well, now we're going, my teen is just this. That is who they are. And we can't fix that. Your teen can't fix that. Your teen's going to go into this place of, why do I even try? If mom and dad think that I'm lazy, well, I'm just going to be lazy because they think I'm lazy no matter what. So we changed this into, my teen is reacting and they appear lazy. The way my teen is responding to whatever it is appears lazy. The way my teen is communicating to me feels disrespectful to me. So we're changing it to something that we can actually address. And then we get to empower. And empower is a word I use very purposely because we want to give our teens the skills to be able to do this on their own. Because what's our ultimate goal as a parent? To raise a child that becomes an adult, that goes out into the world and has a successful, fulfilling life. Not to live in our basement so that we have to constantly go down and remind them to get out of bed and get dressed. We don't want that. But when we're constantly doing that for them and we're constantly motivating them by threat tactics, that's what we're creating and that's what we're raising. And if you talk to people in the office, in the world, they're complaining about millennials. Why? Because millennials don't know how to make decisions for themselves. They're terrified of it. And so they need hand holding. And that's because we've held their hands while they were growing up. So empower is about giving them the tools.
So I had to unmute. Okay, so let's actually look at some examples. We have some coming in. It looks like we'll get to that third one, but let's start with the two that we have up here, and then we'll get to some of the examples that we have in the chat. Thanks everybody for contributing.
I'm seeing a lot of people writing. It starts off with a nice request, then spirals. And so let's go into that because it's actually kind of ties into the anxiety. And we all know this, okay? We go into a nice request of, can you take out the garbage, right? Can you help with the dishes? Can you do this? And it seems very simple to us, right? Not a big deal. I need help. And they just are like adamantly opposed to it. No, right? I don't want to do this. They get upset. Then we get annoyed that, oh my gosh, I do so much around the house. Why can't they just help with the dishwasher? It's not so much to ask, right? Come on. And we get angry. And so we convey our anger and our disappointment, and then they push back. So let's stop for a second and go through the prime. So what is the problem? The problem is when we ask our teens to do something, they push back. So let's get even more specific. When I ask my teen to take the garbage out, they push back and they get annoyed, right? Is that a good people? Yes, no. Is that a good description, or does anybody else have something that, okay, yes, good. So we do that. So now let's stop. What is the reason? Why are they pushing back? Well, there's a lot of reasons why they're pushing back. One is they don't want to take the garbage out. Who does? Taking the garbage out is not a fun task, right? The second part is they are in this spot right now, and this is when we get to the teen wiring. Right now they're feeling, I need to control myself. I want autonomy. I want independence. I need to show that I'm a capable person making good decisions. When you tell me to do something, I feel like you're telling me to obey. And obey is something that does not jive well with a teen that's trying to set up their own unique self and have control of their life. So when we ask in that way, we are pushing every button in their body, and they're just going to push back saying, wait, no, 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 no. I no longer am a person that gets told what to do. And here's the thing, like I just said, we don't want to raise humans that just obey what people tell them. Yes, as a parent, man, that would make life a lot easier. But as someone that is trying to inspire and teach a human being, that's not what we really want, right? So let's look at what's our intention. Our intention in this moment is we want help. We want to teach our kids to actually want to help, right? I mean, ultimately, wouldn't it be great if our kids just took out the garbage without us asking? I mean, what? I'm going to tell you right now, my daughter does. Okay, so now you're listening, right? So our intention is we want our kids to not only help without pushing back, we want them to help without us even asking, because they want to help, right? We want them to be able to look around and go, wow, this needs to be done. I'll go do it. Yes? Is that what our intention? All right, so let's look at a mindset. Our mindset right now is every time I ask my teen to do something, they just push back. They're disrespectful. They're lazy. They don't want to help. They just are so entitled. Everything they just want, and they don't give. And this is our mindset right now. Let's change our mindset to, I really want my teen to help, but I know my teen needs control. Let's also change the mindset to, my teen actually, and I've yet to meet a teen that actually wants to get into trouble. They don't want to get into trouble. So they're reacting in a way, and let's remember the brain too. So when we are asked to do something we don't like to do, in our brain we're going, I don't want to do that, right? I mean, I do that when I take the garbage out. Ugh. But we have a prefrontal cortex that says, hey, that might not be the best response. Let's sit back. What's the long-term goal? It's nice to help. They don't have that. They're reacting immediately to how they feel. Go take the garbage out. Ugh. That's their immediate reaction. There's nothing preventing them from stopping that. But when they do that, we get annoyed and we yell, and then blah, 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 right? It gets this whole spiral. So instead, let's remember, okay, how do I communicate what I need in a way that's not going to trigger that? Or they're triggering that. Let me take a step back and say, clearly that triggered something and they don't want to do it. How do I empower them to want to do it? Okay. Procrastinating is definitely a form of control. Absolutely 100%. But realizing, and one of the ways I describe this, it's a defense mechanism. It's not to annoy you. It does annoy us, but it's not meant to annoy us. It is meant for them to gain back control, to say, so when we say go do something, put down your phone and come sit at the table, right? Well, here's the thing. We're telling them right now to do something. We're taking all the control out from them. So when we do that, we're triggering that. So we go back into what's our intention. Let's change our mindset into they're not trying to make our lives difficult. They're reacting in a way that is automatic to them, and we want to teach them a new way. So how do we empower them? So one of the ways to empower is to, first of all, if we want our kids to help out around the house, let's give them some control of it. because kids actually love when they feel empowered, when they love to help and make us happy. They really do, but when it's on their terms, which can be frustrating because we need it done right now. So let's think about long term. We want our kids to help. So let's look at, okay, how can you guys help around the house? We have the garbage needs to go out, the dishes need to be cleared, and we need to put the food away. Which one do you want to take? Which one do you want to take? I'll take the one that's left over. We're all doing it together. It's not you go do this. It's like the family needs to clean up. Let's all take a role in this and do this together. And then when they've done it, and they've done, so I use this example, my daughter will help with the dishes and there'll be something stuck on the pan, and she's not very detailed in that because she doesn't care. I mean, it's not important to her as it is to me. So instead of going, you missed the spot, which a lot of us will do, which means our teen will never want to help with the dishes again because all we do is point out what they did wrong. Instead, we go, thank you so much for helping with the dishes. That saved me a lot of time and I really appreciate it. Now we get to both put our feet up and watch our show, right? Thank you for that. By the way, and this is a tip I'm going to repeat again, but this tip has worked so much. By the way, I see that there's a spot that you had trouble getting off. That happens to me too. I have a trick. Do you want me to show you how to do that? And now we're giving them the power to say yes or no. And when they say yes, they've opened up and said, okay, I'm going to listen. And when they say no, we don't say anything because they're not going to tell us anyway, right? So here we are empowering them. We want to empower them to want to help. So we give them an open idea. We give them choices on how they can help. We give them some freedom of when they help, and we give them ownership of helping. And one of the things I've learned too is, like I said, my daughter will take out the garbage now without me even asking. It's not that she likes to do it. It's that when I say, hey, can you take out the garbage? And she goes, I don't want to right now. I go, okay, I'll do it. And almost every time now, because I've let her make the decision, she'll be like, no, I'll go do it. And this doesn't happen immediately, but when they know that they have a choice in it, they don't push back as much because they actually like making us happy. They really do. And when we recognize that and say, thank you so much, they like feeling like they helped us. They like that. But when they feel like we're telling them what to do, we get mad if they don't do what we do, we don't like the way they do it, they're going to continue pushing back and they're never going to want to help us, right? So let's think about it from their perspective. What would empower us to help? The same thing will empower them.
I have a question for you really quickly, Dr. Kim, as part of maybe what they have in there. Yeah. So what happens when, if this doesn't work? So if we say, who wants to do, I know Jen made a comment that she had 3 kids that argue about who wants to do what. And so then they tried to put a rotating schedule, but it was a challenge. I mean, I think a lot of parents, we think, well, you know what, we have certain values in our home and our values are, my daughter jokes because I always say Rosen family values. These are Rosen family values, right? That, that we're all going to be helping out at home. So what do we do if the kids say no, they don't want to do it, and yet it's still our value system or our expectations that they do? So how do we handle that?
Yeah, and I'm seeing, I set the time frame and they still don't do it. Well, let's remember again, they don't want to do it. It is not important to them. It is important to us, not to them. So let's remember, and getting mad for it not being a priority to them just because we asked. I mean, I can't change that. It's not important to them. So how do we make it important to them? How does it become something that they want to do on their own? So, you talk about values, Debbie. I think sitting down with them and saying, and I'm going to put right here, this is not a one-time fix. This is not, okay, I'm going to do this. Dr. Cam said to do this. It's going to work and everything's going to be hunky-dory tomorrow. No. There's a lot of habits and responses that are going to have to change. It's you being consistent and sticking with it that'll eventually change it. So I'm going to put that out there right now. This is also not about manipulation. This is not about how do I get them to do what I want. We're talking about human beings, so we're not trying to manipulate them, right? What we're trying to do is teach them and empower them to want to make the right choices. So When we three were still home, the first person to start one of the tasks had the choice. I love that. So finding ways that actually encourage them. Thank you, Neen. That works really well too. So it's sitting down and saying, what are our values? And it could be saying, we need help around the kitchen. This is why we need help around the kitchen. And we really want your help around the kitchen. How can you help? What are you going to own? And the problem is when we let our kids own stuff, and this is probably one of the hardest things, we let them own it whether they succeed or they fail. So when we give them ownership of something, if they fail, they own the failure. And for a lot of us, we will let them own it as long as they do it the way we want to do it, when we want to do it. As soon as they do it differently, we take back ownership, so they never really owned it, right? So when we give them ownership of something, it is if they fail. And then what happens is we set up the consequences of that. And it's a standard of, okay, your job, you've decided that you are going to take out the garbage, right? That's the decision, that you are going to take out the garbage. I'm not going to nag you about that. You've decided. If you want me to remind you, let me know, and I'm happy to remind you. What is a good way to remember to take out the garbage? How can we do that? So we're helping them. Okay, all day long goes. The garbage doesn't get taken out. The garbage doesn't get taken out. The garbage doesn't get taken out. They don't want to do it. Well, what was the consequence you set up beforehand about that? What is it? Setting up something, and it should be something that's really related to the garbage. So if you don't take out the garbage this time, then next time you've got to do the garbage and another task. I'm going to take it out this time, but just let you know, now the consequence is you take it out both times. You got to stick to that, and you continue to stick to that. So it is a matter of making sure we're setting this up. The consequence is set, and if they decide to do the consequence over and over again, then let's change the consequence to something that is going to actually work. But you're not nagging anymore. It is their decision. If they don't do it, they decided to do the consequence, and you say, okay, here's the consequence. But here's the thing, what I have found that works even better than establishing this, don't do it, here's a consequence, is whenever they do help, recognize it. Look for what they do right far more than what they do wrong. When you look for what they do right and you recognize it and you appreciate it and you say, oh my gosh, thank you so much, even if it's a small thing that they've done to help, you start building that up. And so when they start building that up, they start doing more of it. This is what I've done. I've never taken the phone away from my daughter. I've never grounded her. It's all been about how can you contribute, and thank you for contributing. And now she contributes a lot, and she has ADHD. So when you need reminding, this is again something where we want to give them tools. And if they have ADHD or other trouble reminding, it's saying, okay, how do you want to be reminded? What's the best way for you to be reminded? My daughter has a different Hamilton song, because she's into Broadway, for everything she needs to do. She sets that up. So she's got a different Hamilton song that goes off, and she's like, okay, now I've got to go do this. And she owns it. I don't own it. She owns it. What if you have an almost 11-year-old that is emotional and goes from 0 to 100 when upset? Is that normal preteen stage, or is there something else that should be worked on? So 0 to 100 going upset means they really do not have the tools to regulate their emotions right now. So the first thing is for you to remain calm when they're getting that emotional, and don't get emotional with them, and to start teaching them tools. Asking them to calm down in the moment is not going to help, because when we tell our kids to be calm or don't worry, it doesn't change their behavior, it just makes them feel bad about feeling bad. So instead, it's helping them work through it. So if you're staying calm and you're helping them, you might be teaching them and showing them breathing, which at first they're going to just ignore and be annoyed with. But every single time they do it, you start giving them and teaching them skills. And when they're calm, you start helping them working with skills on how to stay calm. So when their emotions kick in, but just remember, their brain is now hijacked. So rational thinking is not going to help right now. Getting angry is not going to help right now. It's going to be frustrating for you, I know, and it's really hard when they're just like spiraling really quick. Staying calm, modeling how to stay calm, and when they get out of it, figuring out the reason they got so upset. And how do we prevent that? Is there a way to prevent that reason? Is there a way to help that trigger? Is there a way to tools that you can teach them next time? And it's going to take a while for them to relearn, but it's something that you can start teaching them that tool. I hope that helped. Is there an age kids own their ADHD? The example of your daughter setting alarms is good, but what if they still think they don't need alarms, tools to deal with ADHD? So the ADHD, I think one of the things that's really hard with that is, some kids feel very labeled with it. And it's kind of, they feel like, oh, I don't want to be labeled ADHD. I don't want people to think that something's wrong with me. I don't know if that's the case, but sometimes that is. And so they're in this denial phase. Rather than saying, you know what, the way you learn is fine. You learn differently than some other kids learn. And I think what makes it really hard with ADHD, and this is one thing that I personally have struggled with, is that the way my child learns has been labeled ADHD because she has a short attention span and it doesn't work well in the traditional school environment. So I have to help her figure out tools to manage in that school environment. So it's really addressing it as there's nothing broken with you, but to help you handle this situation and to be more successful in this situation, we can set up some things. What would work for you to set it up? But it's really, I think, changing our language a little bit sometimes to make them feel like this is not about you being broken. This is about how to help you be successful in an environment that is not necessarily an environment that is set up for you to best succeed in. Does that help? And sometimes it's also, what are other ways? I think modeling ways with them. And one of the things with kids, when we're trying to teach them to help around the house, I've noticed that when we do it with them, it becomes for example, the dishwasher. Neither my daughter, and I'm a single mom, neither my daughter or I like doing the dishwasher. Blech. So we do it together. She does the top, I do the bottom, right? Let's do it together. I get the help. She doesn't fight back because I'm doing it with her. And then there's things that we kind of do and we share it. And once we do it and it's everyone and it doesn't feel like we're singling them out, let's clean up as a family. We got to get outside more, right? Let's go out as a family and do stuff. What do you want to do? What do you like to do? Sometimes the parents have to sacrifice what they like to do what the teens like to do because it's more important to us than it is to the teens. So we have to do something that's going to encourage them. Alarm set, reminders given, very inconsistent results, what to do. So a lot of this is just practicing over and over again. And I think one of the things is to also look at when they're successful. A lot of times we get very focused on when they're not successful and when we need to fix it. And again, I recommend and encourage you guys to always look for what they do right. I talk to teens every day and I hear over and over and over again, I can't do anything right. Why even bother? All my parents care about is my grades. Why even bother? No matter what I do, I get in trouble. Why even bother? And this is what they see, because when we say something negative, that's all they hear. We can say 5 things positive and 1 thing negative, they hear the negative. And I will tell you, I think if most of us listen to our tapes back of how we're interacting with our teen, my guess, because this is fairly normal, is that there's a lot more negative than positive. And our kids just start getting all these defenses up. They start getting annoyed. They start hearing all these things. So what I encourage you to do, even if you feel like, oh my God, there's nothing positive to find right now, that's even more sign to start looking really hard and finding stuff that's positive and pointing that out, because now they're starting to go, oh my gosh, I can do things right. This is what actually helps me, and I will start doing this. So I think finding that, building up their self-esteem, modeling that, finding momentum in that can help too. Another thing I just want to share too, let's see, free time. When we suggest family time, they are resistant. Ideas on how to handle. My best suggestion for that, again, is meet them where they're at. And this, a lot of times, again, I'll talk to teens that are up in their room and they don't want to come down, and the parents are upset. Why won't they spend time with me? And a lot of times, from the teen's perspective, it's not fun to spend time with you. Sorry to say, because we want to do what's fun to us. Or we get in a point where, sometimes we will fall into these lecture teaching moments like that. I'm not saying everyone does. Sometimes we do. But look at, is it fun to hang out with you? And if it hasn't been, or they don't feel that way, it's going to take a while. You're going to chip away at it. But meet them where they're at. Do what they love. One of the things, and this was one of the examples, we're going all over the place, Debbie. I hope that's okay. We're just kind of addressing stuff.
Go for it.
So one of the things I was saying too with like the laziness was the video games. And kids will play video games, and a lot of them do this because it reduces their anxiety. It stimulates their brain. It's just a lot more fun than everything else, right? One of the things we'll do as parents is be like, put down the damn video game and get outside. Let's go do something, rather than saying, hey, what video game are you playing? Can you, tell me about it? Teach me. Can we get in there and play with you? Things like this where we get into doing something that they love to do. Let's scroll through TikTok together. Let's do a TikTok dance. I have a very embarrassing one up on TikTok of me and my daughter. Let's do things that you love to do, because I'm going to show you that I care enough about you that I'm going to spend time and do that, because it's important to me to spend time with you. So I'm going to do what you want to do. And as we do more and more of what they want to do, it'll start being more of and we're only talking, we're listening, we're sharing, we're not talking about the school, we're not talking about anything, we're just having fun with this. It becomes safer and safer for them to spend time with you. Yes.
So Dr. Cam, I'll just mention really quickly that a couple of things you said, just to kind of bring some things together.
Sure.
I think it's really, really important. One is, this concept that Rachel Bailey, who's often here, talks about in terms of deposits and withdrawals. And that's what a lot of what you're talking about is, it is a deposit for me to, lie in the bed with my daughter and have her take me through all this stuff. I'm like, oh my God, I'm not at all interested in this. And for all of my friends that are out there, don't tell her that I said that. But it really is the deposit that then helps later with that dishwasher, right? So one of the things that we really want to share is that some of these specific things that we're talking about, it is hard the first time to be like, okay, you don't want to empty the dishwasher, or hey, would you like to empty the dishwasher or take the garbage out? Nothing, right? And so sometimes it's the totality of what we do in terms of making the deposits, because asking them to take the garbage out is a withdrawal. And so we want to look at all the deposits we're making. And then I think the other thing you said that's really key, and we have the saying of watering the seeds, is, when we see the small things that our kids do, it takes so much energy as adults, but we really have to find those little things they've done right instead of the things that we'd like them to do differently.
Yeah.
And, many of you have had situations where maybe your student has asked you to listen to a presentation that they may be giving. And it's hard because as adults, there's so many things we would want them to do differently in this science presentation that they might be giving. But really just thinking, what seeds can I water? What things that he or she is doing so well that I want to say, I really like how you're doing this. Because then, of course, they're going to be a lot more open to taking some suggestions, or maybe you just don't even give the suggestions until the next time. Because as you said, it's really a long-term game. And I think some of those things are so important, just to remember everything you're saying from the beginning about how hard it is and remembering to stay calm. I think another tip that I had learned once, and you said as well, is almost do the opposite. If you think of the emotion meter, the higher their emotion is, lower that your emotion should be, if you will, which I think is also helpful. And we can go whichever way you want. I don't know if you wanted to try to go through a couple more of these examples, or we want to just continue to.
I like answering people if I can do that. There's a lot of things.
Sure.
There's one thing another thing I wanted to say about motivation too, and it when it comes to taking the garbage out and things like this. which is just, an example of many, many things that this covers. But our motivation and our energy to do stuff is actually a set amount. We don't have unlimited motivation. We don't have unlimited energy. So if your kids have been in school trying to focus on a screen that is so boring, that takes so much energy. Even to pretend to sit in front of that takes so much energy. So by the end of the day, they've done all this, and then we go, can you take the garbage out? Well, that, to us, that's not a big deal. To them, they don't have anything left. They're spent. They're done. So it's thinking about when we ask them to help too. Let's ask them to help more in the morning when they've got more energy. Let's ask them to help after they've had time playing outside and feel more rejuvenated, right? When we ask them to do something after they've already been doing everything, they're done, and we're going to get a lot of pushback. Oh my gosh, there's so much coming in. So one parent just asked about their friend that their daughter doesn't like and she can't see her side. I'm going to say right away, this is a great opportunity to listen and hear her side. Let's not try to convince her about respect right now. Let's understand, why is she so uncomfortable with him coming over? Let's listen to that, understand it, empathize with that, and really get to how can you address her concerns? Because there could be some good reasons why she's not comfortable. So let's listen and empathize with that. And empathy, I think we have the empathy loop. Do you want to throw that up? I'm just going all over. So the empathy loop, let me show you. Okay, yeah, let's do empathy loop. So the empathy loop is probably one of the most powerful tools for a parent in almost every situation I'm seeing come up, is empathy. Empathy, empathy, empathy. A lot of the things our teens complain about seem really ridiculous to us, right? You're like, what in the scheme of things are they, come on. People have it worse than you. It's not that bad. Stop doing that. Cheer up, suck it up. We're saying all this stuff. All of that is why teens feel misunderstood, because we're not listening to them. We're just shutting them down. What we want to do, and what is extremely powerful, and what Debbie was just saying in terms of like the connection and filling up the tank, empathy is so powerful. In fact, hostage negotiators use this tool to talk down the hostage takers. That's how powerful this is. So what we want to do is very simple. When our kids are acting out, and this could be, the one mom that said that her her son goes from 0 to 100 too. Empathy could be a very powerful tool here. What's going on? Calmly, no emotion. No, what's going on? It's what's going on. And they may respond with a statement. Chances are very good you're going to get a, I don't know, right? Or just more screaming. Chances are very good you're going to get that. Make your best guess. You seem really upset. You seem angry. You're tired. I'm getting the impression, or help me understand. And then they either agree or disagree. And it just might be a no, or it might be yeah, whatever, but it's agree. And then you're done. Or you can say, I'm sorry you feel that way. And when we all need hostage negotiation training, right? So what that's doing is it's showing your teen that you hear them, that you understand them, and that you validate their feeling, because that is what they're feeling. It is a true feeling. So let's validate it. And this again can go back to the garbage. I know you do not want to take the garbage out. I get it. I don't like taking the garbage out either. We got to take turns. I really appreciate you helping me here, and this is how this is going to help me. I'm not getting mad. I'm just recognizing. I get it. I know. It sucks. I'm sorry. And now we're at least hearing them. The other thing that is really, really powerful that is in line with this for parents to do is to listen. Listen, listen, listen. I teach the 80-20 rule. Your teens should be talking 80% of the time. You're talking about 20% of the time. And during that 20%, asking questions to clarify what you heard. This is why teens don't like telling their parents anything or talking to their parents or opening up about anything, because we always want to turn it into a lecture, a learning, a judgment, a whatever. And they don't want that. They can't tell us anything, or we get all anxious and, overreact in their opinion. When we just listen, even if you're screaming inside, trust me, there's been things that I have two nieces who are now in their 20s, and some of the stuff they've told me, I'm like inside going, what? Sorry, that was really high. What? Being and just listening and understanding and validating and going through it, and all of a sudden they start trusting you more. Okay, so ditto to Michelle's question. What was Michelle's question? I need tips to get spouse on board. This is always a really, really tricky one. The spouse thing has been very challenging for a lot of people. A lot of and I'm guessing I'm seeing mostly women here, and a lot of dads relate to it more as leadership. And one of the ways I describe parenting teens, it's not management, it's leadership. And so talk about how do they work with their employees or their coworkers? How do they interact with them? And a lot of the skills they use very successfully at work and with their colleagues actually works well with their teens, because teens are human too. And a lot of times as parents, the expectations we have for our teens defy human nature. They really do. Think about it. The things we're asking them to do, human beings, we ourselves wouldn't do it. So let's flip it. If our boss was treating us the way we were treating our teens, how would we react? Would we be okay with it? Would we be like, yes, sirree, boss, I'm happy to do that. Let me go. No, we'd probably be, if we were doing it, we'd probably be bitching and moaning in our head, and we might be going and refreshing our resume, right? So think about, how would you feel if your boss treated you that way? And what is another way for you to react that would be more effective? And just put it in that frame of mind. That's helped me sometimes help dads understand. And a lot of times too, being empathetic with the other spouse of, I get this is really difficult. And just helping them understand the brain science behind it is also another way, because they start learning, wait, this is not my teen being broken. This is how my teen is wired. And in order to work with them, this is what's going to work. Just thought that my son is writing his resume for new parents. Yeah, I bet some of them wish they could, but it's really just because they don't feel heard. When they feel heard and they know that you're trying your hardest, and and you admit your mistakes, you ask for their forgiveness when you make a mistake. Oh my God, that's so powerful. That does not undermine your authority. It shows that you're self-aware. It shows that you care, and it shows that you're trying your best, and it shows it's okay to fail. And when you fail, it's okay to ask forgiveness, because now you're modeling that for your teen, and your teen's going to know it's okay for them to fail, and that if they do, it's okay for them to come to you and admit it and ask for forgiveness. That's powerful stuff. We are not supposed to be the perfect parent, never showing our flaws, because that gives our teens the message that you're supposed to be perfect. And no human is. So we want to show them it's okay to be flawed. It's okay to make mistakes. And it's okay that we're trying our best. And we are going to make a lot of mistakes. We just are. Anything else?
So do you want to share your last few tips?
Sure.
As we have this last couple minutes here.
Yeah, so I love this quote by Stephen Covey. It's, if you want to have a more pleasant, cooperative teenager, be a more understanding, empathic, consistent, loving parent. And I couldn't sum that up better. So that is it. Again, no teen wants to get in trouble. In the past 2 decades I've been working with teenagers, I have yet to meet one that does not want a better relationship with their parent. Let me repeat that. They all want a better relationship with you too. They just don't know how. There's so much miscommunication. They don't know how to communicate with you in the way they know how without getting in trouble. And so they just need to learn how to communicate, and you need to learn how to translate what they're saying into a way that they're not coming from it from a place to be a jerk. They're coming at it from a place of, this is all I know how to do. So I would do, what age does a child become a teenager in your opinion? Whew. I think it really depends. The teenager is really this transition from child to adult. And so the years of teenhood keep getting longer and longer. So, a lot of people will say it starts somewhere around 11 or 12 and can go into their mid-20s right now, because that's when that brain, really from 11 to 25 is when your brain is going through that huge growth spurt and the rest of our brain is forming. So that's kind of that period. And I know I can just sense a lot of you going, oh my God, it's that long. But I want to tell you, when we start to understand our teens and we start to work with their wiring, I'm going to tell you this, you're not going to believe me, but it's so true. The adolescent years can actually be some of the best years for a parent. They can be very joyful because now our teens are creating their own identity, their own self. They help around the house when they feel inspired to and feel encouraged to and are recognized for it. The teen years can be some of the most amazing years. It's all in our approach. When kids say nothing is wrong or I don't know, do we just wait it out or do we ask them probing questions? So when we pepper questions at kids, they feel like they're being interrogated and it will just shut them down. And as somebody that is a coach with teens, I get this all the time where I have teens that will just, right? You just kind of get this glare and this I don't know. This we need to be very careful with and very short with. So peppering and throwing a lot of questions at them is just going to continue to shut them down. A lot of times it's just, okay, I get it. And we can talk about this later and wait until, when you're ready to talk, I'm here. And then make sure that you're there when they're ready to talk. Because when we let them talk on their terms, they're much more likely to talk. When we try to get them to talk on our terms, they're going to shut down. And they can come at us at some really inconvenient times. But when you're having trouble getting your teen to open up, really make it a priority that when they're ready to, that you're there to listen.
So I think it's a little bit after 10.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's okay. We'll stay on for just a couple minutes. There was one other question that a couple people had, trying to get him off gaming, come up for dinner, gets rude, doesn't even realize he's answered us previously, that he's coming, but never did come. I get upset with him and want to take the time to walk away and talk later, but how do you get dinner done? What about situations that can't wait till later?
So situations like that, we need to be a little prepared. And let me explain the video game thing, the phone thing. We know they're addictive, right? We all do. And so when we ask our teen to just jump off and put it down right now and come to dinner, his brain is not going to shut off that fast. That's a difficult thing for him to do. So let's recognize that that's a very difficult thing for him to do. So if you know dinner's going to be at 7, give your teen a reminder at like 6:30. Hey, dinner's going to be ready in a half an hour and we're going to want you to join us. So if you can start winding down now, because who likes being stopped in the middle of a game? Mom, nobody wants that, right? So say, we're going to start in a half an hour. We need you to wind down. And then you may have to, and it's not always going to be like this, but we're training. And then it's like, okay, 20 minutes. Okay, 15 minutes. Let's walk them down. Okay, let's start bringing you to dinner. And you're going to have to teach them, because here's the thing. It's not because your teen is being a pain in the butt. It's because your teen's brain is not wired to just shut down like that. We got to help them do it. And so instead of getting upset that they're not able to shut down, which they're not wired to do, understand and let's work with them. Timer is a better nag than I am. Yeah, I mean, nagging doesn't work. I know we want to nag. I know we like doing it. We know we don't like doing it. I know we do it a lot. Nagging is nagging. If we're constantly nagging, let's stop and say, okay, what's another way we can do it? Because nagging is just shutting them down. When we nag, when we yell, when we do any of that, it's like an adverse, we tune it out. So there are other ways.
So any nuggets that you want to share as we're leaving? Thank you for all of the feedback, everybody, and the amazing questions. Any kind of last tips or tricks that we want to share? It's a long-term type of an approach.
Yeah,
Right?
I want to give
For us
one more tip for
to
people that have trouble getting their teens to do something, even like homework and things like that, or practice or do anything like this. I call it's the 5-minute rule, but it could be even shorter. Break it down into the smallest little step that it possibly can be. For example, if you want them to practice the piano and they're just pushing back, say, you know what, just go play for 2 minutes. 2 minutes, that's all I'm asking. And if once 2 minutes is up and they're done, let them step away, because now they know that they have control and you're not trying to manipulate them, which you kind of are, but you're not. Most of the time, the act of getting from A to B to start it is really the hardest part. So if we're breaking it down and just saying, do it for this tiny little minute, which they don't need a lot of motivation. Remember, motivation wanes. And so motivating them to do this and they're seeing a whole hour, that's a lot of motivation. Motivating them to do 2 minutes takes a very teeny bit of motivation, but once they're there, chances are really good. And I've had teens tell me this a lot. They just end up playing because they're there already. So breaking it down into the smallest little bit that it doesn't even require motivation is a great way to get them started.
That's a great
And
tip.
I'm done.
Yeah. No, we could just talk here all morning.
I could easily.
I think we've already got suggestions for you coming back. So we will definitely invite you right
Happy
here in front of
to.
everybody, so you can't say no. Well, thanks everybody for this extra time you gave us for the 7 extra minutes. And a special thank you so much to you, Dr. Cam. I know that we all walked away with a lot of great tips and remotivating.
Yeah.
Control our own emotions.
And show them where they can get the little,
Yes.
I created, just for you guys, I created a little download.
Yes.
Oh yeah, there was still more we didn't even
today.
cover. Oh my
So
goodness.
for those of you, yes, who want a download, you can see that right here on the Prime Parenting. Sorry, Dr. Cam.
No, that's all right. Thank you. So this, if you go here, you can download this, and this just walks you through the steps that I walked you through to figure out how best for you to handle your teen's specific behavior in a way that works for you. And this is just that way to do that. So that'll help you walk through that.
And we'll leave that up, and it's www.askdrcam.com/prime. And I will include that also in the follow-up email so everybody can get that. All right. Thanks, everybody. And a special thanks to you, Dr. Cam. I really appreciate it. Stay warm and safe, everyone. And we'll see you in March.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.